I'm Scott Ott, and this is Bill Whittle Now. Bill, we're going to play a little game that I've played in business settings before. Have you ever done a SWOT analysis?
I have not.
This SWOT is an acronym, S.W.O.T. It stands for Strengths, Weaknesses, Opportunities, and Threats. And as we go into 2019, I wrestled with where to take this, whether we should talk about President Trump, whether we should talk about Republicans, but I decided to settle on how conservatives should handle 2019. Okay, so as we're going into 2019, as the kickoff of presidential campaigns, no doubt, and just the new Congress with Democrats in charge of the House of Representatives, let's take a quick look at each area of that SWOT analysis. And number one is, from a conservative perspective, what do you think our strengths are right now?
I think our strengths are what they've always been, which is we are try as much as humanly possible to align ourselves with reality as it presents itself. And as we see the left and the progressive left especially getting more and more demented about this, I think that just makes our strength look stronger. When we did a segment just a little while ago about Martina Navratilova, who is gay and has been an advocate for gay and bi and trans movements for the last 20, 30 years or something. She said it wasn't fair for her to compete against men who have had sex change operations for women to compete against them, which is clearly obviously true. There's no question about it. And if anybody has their bona fides, it's Martina in this particular case. But the hate assault aimed at this champion of LGBT rights, who is arguably the best woman tennis player of all time, saying that it's not fair for women to compete against men just because a man identifies as a woman, is just another one of the many milestones of watching progressivism just slide off the edge. And to the degree that they get more and more disconnected from reality, I think our ability to face reality, whether we like it or not, is probably our greatest strength.
So basically, the grasp of human nature and of fundamental principles. Bill, that sounds mighty old-fashioned to some ears. People would say, wake up and step out of the 1700s, my brother.
To which I would reply, well, if you want to step out of the 1700s, you got an awful lot of murdering and dead people ahead of you before you get to 2019. The 20th century was the era of the progressive movements. It was the era of collectivism. It was the era of centralized everything. And we lost several freedoms in America, but this is nothing compared to what happened to the 50, 60 million killed under collectivism in the Soviet Union, 6 million Jews killed by collectivism in Nazi Germany, plus another 6 million assorted homosexuals and gypsies and so on. Probably 40 or 50 million dead in communist China over this collectivist idea of stepping into the future. Throw in Cambodia for another 6 or 7 million, Vietnam, and all the rest. You're pretty close to 200 million dead bodies between 1700s and 2019. To which you can now add the people who are starving to death in Venezuela. So this constant idea that, well, they didn't do it right is a pretty thin argument. If I tried something, Scott, and I tried it again and again and again and again and again, and all I had to show for it was ruin and 200 million dead bodies, I'd start thinking that maybe this wasn't such a good idea. So again, I think that while it may sound like 1760s, the fact of the matter is, it not only does it sound like 1760, it sounds like 1760 BC as well, and it is, and it's 4000 BC, and it's as far back as history and writing goes, and much further back than that. Our entire idea is that humans are constructed in such a way as to make them capable of astonishing acts of insight and science and poetry, art, all of this, and also have within them a very deep flaw that is not erasable. And the ability to understand that is paramount to our success. That's why our government worked as well as it did before it went off the rails. It worked as well as it did because it was designed to protect against power grabs and against general, crapitude. And so that is still our strength. But if you want to talk about selling that to people, I'm looking forward to that part in the
Well,
weaknesses.
I think that's the next question. As you look at conservatives in 2019, what do you believe is our chief weakness?
Without question. Without question. It's the inability of politicians, conservative politicians, to put what are essentially very simple and very beautiful ideas into a coherent message that resonates with people emotionally. This is the entire failure of the conservative movement. There's, I think it was P.J. O'Rourke. Certainly, P.J. O'Rourke was instrumental in me, really identifying myself as a conservative. And the reason P.J. O'Rourke meant so much to me was because P.J. O'Rourke was able to make conservatism cool. Here was a guy who was writing for National Lampoon, and he was basically saying things like the C-130 roaring over the desert, and he's in the back in the jump seat. He says, it's like just thunder on the earth. And he says, and we're the ones that like fast cars and beautiful women and guns and cool stuff. And how come we're always the weenies? And I thought, my God, the guy's absolutely right. We do not understand the power of messaging. We never have understood it. At least we've never consciously understood it. But all of the values that we have as conservatives were once, when I say once, I mean certainly by at least until the 50s, pretty much commonly shared among all Americans. You might have different ideas about how to get there, but everybody thought America was a great country and a force for freedom, and that capitalism provided not only wealth for the people who were running businesses, but the people who were employed by those businesses. So on, all of these conservative ideas were everywhere. And the reason they were everywhere was because Hollywood and TV later and all the rest of it, all of our myth making, all of our storytelling was telling the American people that these were good things. And somewhere in the 60s, right around the time of movies like Easy Rider and Bonnie and Clyde, we started to see a world where now the roots of America are evil, and it's the outcasts and the criminals who are the heroes. And after 40 years of this, we're now at the point where all of the values that made this country great are demonized, and they're not just mocked. I mean, they're simply demonized. So the idea that if you call yourself a capitalist, good luck getting a table in Berkeley. There's a number of Republican groups in Los Angeles that try to get events, just regular Republican Party events, hosted at various hotels in Los Angeles, and they simply turn down because they're conservative, because they believe in freedom and because they believe in limited government, because they believe that we should treat people as individuals, as Martin Luther King said, not by the color of their skin, but by the content of their character. And with a few exceptions, and I mean a very few exceptions, and not to blow our own horn, but this outlet being one of them, we as conservatives do not understand how to take such a simple message that everybody resonates with, everybody.
Yeah, it occurs to me, Bill,
and
that
make it part of politics.
Between Christmas and New Year's, me and my family will probably see 5 movies, maybe 6, during this time. We will not see any political speeches. We will not.
None.
We will not go to any theater to listen to somebody wax eloquent about their conservative ideas, even though I cling to those ideas myself. Okay, so the last 2 categories.
Just to give you one example of that, just so people understand just the power of it. I've got a pretty finely tuned antenna at this point for the messages that are coming at me through movies. I saw a movie that I actually like very much called Mortal Engines. It's a science fiction. It's like steampunk. It's what happens if the Victorians basically, had advanced technologies. And in this story, I was watching it very carefully. I was watching it for anti-American bias. I was watching it and so on. But at the very end of this movie, the city of London, which is on giant tractor treads and goes around and eats every other city and everything in the world, is finally defeated. And all of the white English settlers, residents of London, come up this cliff after London has been ruined, and they're met by these Chinese people who extend their hand in peace, and there's a lot of messages to be digested there, whether you realize it or not. London, the city which is the capital of the British Empire, literally eating other things as it runs on this rampage across the world. The idea that the East is somehow merciful to prisoners, while the West is not, it's just a complete inversion of reality. But there's that image, and whether you are aware of it or not, that's the message that you took home with you.
So let's take the last two categories together in this SWOT analysis: strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats. For conservatives in 2019, what do you see as the chief opportunity? And at the same time, what do you see as the chief threat? In other words, something that could stop us from taking advantage of that opportunity.
I think without question, our chief opportunity is something that I've dedicated a lot of work to on the side, as well as doing this other stuff. But I think it's absolutely the future. Our chief opportunity is to realize that millennials and young people vote Democratic across the board. If you had only millennials voting for president tomorrow, Republicans would carry Utah, and that's it. We'd lose 532 to 8 or 6 or something like that. So that's very, very worrisome. But what I think my real insight was that more and more and more young people are spending more and more time playing computer games, Scotty. And when they play computer games, they pretty much do two things. They make money and they buy guns and drive fast. I'm in favor of all three of these things. And what I've come to realize is that millennials and even younger people now are spending more and more time in computer games so that they can act like conservatives. So that they can fire weapons, drive fast, rescue the girl, so that they can go through the experience of combat, so that a virtual character in Call of Duty can say, "Hey, good job, kid." All of the things that young men are wired for, and
so the
women
opportunity
as well.
is to connect with those people who are in that medium. What's the threat to that?
Well, hang on. The main point, and this is really the absolutely key point about what I just said. The main point is that this younger generation votes Democrat. They vote for socialists. They vote for Bernie. They do all of these things. But when you leave them alone on their own money and in their own time, they act like conservatives. So we don't have to change their behaviors. We don't have to change anything that they do. We simply have to point out to them that the behaviors that they have in their own pastime as they run away from this social justice world that's constantly telling the men you're just defective girls and potential rapists, and they're telling the women, no, you should be happy, and let's just get men out of the picture. And all of this nonsense is driving them underground into a world where they behave like conservatives. And social justice warriors have ruined the post-Christian religion of America, which is Star Wars. Believe it or not, it is. Star Trek's been ruined by social justice warriors. One by one, they're picking them off. The next James Bond, they say, should be transsexual. That'll be the end of that franchise as well. So it's a tremendous opportunity to realize that the young people of this country are plenty sick of this social justice nightmare that's been foisted on them. They're plenty angry at the progressives who have taken away all of the things that they held dear, and all we have to do is point that out to them. The biggest threat is that we won't realize this. The biggest threat to the conservative movement, in my opinion, is this continuing, ongoing, it seems almost unbreakable necessity of talking about the values that we hold as if, as you said, they're from 1760 or whatever, 1783, 1776, whatever date you want to put on it. The biggest threat to us is that we will completely lose young voters and simply just be, we'll just be bred out of existence because we are not capable of being able to express the concepts that were made clear in the Founding Fathers in a way that's interesting to young people. In other words, I'll go to a Tea Party event as a speaker, and I will see a Gadsden flag, and I'll see here's a guy dressed up like Ben Franklin, and I'm standing in front of a beautiful, background image of the Constitution, and so on and so on and so on. I know what that means. You know what that means. Most people watching this show know what that means, so we like it. But if you have specifically been excluded from this, if your education has been designed to make sure that you don't know anything about these things, you're basically going to young people and saying, we believe in a philosophy where you have a feather quill, which you write on the skin of an animal, and we have a flintlock musket, and we have frilly collars and knee breeches and tri-corner hats, and this is what we believe, so come aboard. And they look at you as if you're nuts.
Can we be honest, though, Bill? I don't think we're going to change the minds of the people who are the leading sort of, who lead the charge right now in the conservative movement. Don't we need to kind of look outside to find some other voices, some other people who get it?
Wouldn't that be nice?
Yes. Well, we'll just leave it there then. Ladies and gentlemen, Bill Whittle now comes to you 5 days a week with the breaking news of the day and occasionally for more thoughtful, introspective pieces like this one, thanks to the members at BillWhittle.com who contribute anywhere from about $9.95 a month up to almost $50 a month to make this kind of programming happen. You can become one of those members by going to BillWhittle.com and clicking that Become a Member link. It's right at the top of the page. If you have any questions, there's a contact link right there, and let us know how we can help you. We appreciate those who have made this program possible, and we're looking forward to, we did 80 episodes in 2018, by the way, from the fall of 2018 till the end of the year.
And we didn't miss one of them. 5 days a week, every single day.
We're looking forward to doing a lot more of them in 2019, and we appreciate you making that possible. So for Bill Whittle, I'm Scott Ott. Thanks to the members at BillWhittle.com for making everything we do here a reality.
And Happy New Year.
And Happy New Year.